4 years ago, just before Plague, I bought an Edwardian house. So this is my sitting room. When I moved in, all of these walls were beige. There were none of the bookcases or bookshelves or anything up. The only element of the room that still has, when I bought it, is the fireplace, which I think is, if it's not original to the building dates from 1905. If it's not 1905 original, it's an example of some architectural salvage that's been put in. One of the difficulties I've had with this house really is trying to determine what's original, what's wannabe make-believe original, and what isn't. And one of the pitfalls of trying to work in this house is because it's over 120, it's coming up on 120 years old, is simply that not knowing which services are live, which ones are dead, which ones are relics, which ones are still working, which ones are doing what. It's had 120 years worth of people bashing hell out of it, which I'm trying to put right. One of the things that I've found out for myself is that this wall is quite weak. The cast iron radiator, after 3 years, is starting to slowly peel away from it, so I've got to do something about that next year. The hallway, when I moved in, the floor didn't look like this. It was all reproduction Edwardian tiles, and the vendors told me, oh, the original floor is under there. So one day I got bored and, well, you would, wouldn't you? And this was the happy result. I won't tell you how much of the tiling I'd taken up when I started to think about, well, what happens if this starts to peter out as you get further toward the door. I'd also say from painful experience that concrete grit and grout grit in your eyes is not a fun way to spend a Saturday afternoon. The dining room, I redecorated this in 2022, and one of the big issues with it was that underneath the window, it wasn't tanked. There was no waterproofing. In fact, it was just a line of broken brick, and then I think 3 or possibly 4 layers of plasterboard, and water had slowly ripped through there and was ruining the wall, so I had to have that made good. Something similar was also happening around the chimney breast, where water was sort of slowly percolating in around here. Oh, and it was also coming up from the floor here. And when I dug down, I found that at some point the floor had been replaced with concrete, but underneath there had basically been left as broken bricks and sand and rubble, and water was wicking up through there, so I had to dig all of that out and make that good as well. The kitchen, this actually used to be 3 rooms. Long before I moved in, I've got drawings upstairs. This part used to be a scullery. This part used to be an outdoor toilet. And all down here used to be the coal cellar. The house doesn't have a cellar or anything like, or a basement or anything like that. It's the ground floor, the first floor, and the attic space. Coming upstairs now. And I took the carpet up and decided to stain all the floorboards. The floorboards in the middle here, these are all new floorboards, because when I took the carpet up, everything under here was warped and twisted and starting to break apart. When the house had been fitted up with central heating, they hadn't exactly done a very, what word can I use here? They hadn't done a very sympathetic job of doing it. And consequently, you've got holes in walls and drilled randomly through floors and whatnot. This is my bedroom, the master bedroom. It's probably about the largest room in the house. I haven't done much in here at all yet, because I've been concentrating on the sitting room and the dining room. One thing I have done though is to move the loft access from in the hallway into the bedroom. The reason why I've done that is because that's the loft hatch. in the hallway, and right next to it you've got, well, you'd be killed to death if you fell off a ladder and went down there, and I didn't fancy it above half. The back bedroom, this is eventually going to become a hobby room at some point, but that day is not today. Next year, the 2024 build programme is basically to completely strip out the bathroom and to replace it with something a bit more appropriate to the era. What I'm trying to do with the house is I'm trying to make it look vaguely Edwardian without wanting to turn it into a museum. Nobody, in my mind, wants to live in a museum. And to close up to now, we will go into the back garden. I jokingly call this the paddock, and the reason I do that is I kind of discovered it's technically just barely large enough to keep a horse on. So this is the back garden. I do have a couple of ideas for this in the long term. One of them is to take down the pergola and replace it with a summer room or a garden room or something in that nature, but other than that I haven't got any real goals in here at the moment, and it's not a priority. Yeah. So that was just a quick tour of what I've been doing for the last 4 years and what I will be doing for what feels like the next 4 and possibly longer.